Hello everyone, welcome to yesterday's Airlines. In this short video I'm going to take a quick look at the Tu-204 and compare it to its contemporary airliners so you can see the size difference between the Tu-204 and other airliners which were around at about the same time and fill the same sort of niche. So this will give you a good idea about what you're going to get when you finally do get your Tu-204s from NG Models and how they're going to fit in your collection. So we'll start with the aircraft that the Tu-204 is undoubtedly designed to replace, and that's the Tu-154. And here we've got a Tu-154, and you can see that it is substantially shorter actually than the 204 here. Obviously a lot more wheels as well, the main carriage to fit on those, not great Russian airports surfaces, but that has mostly been resolved by the time the 204 was designed, so they were able to get rid of that. Russian engines always way behind those in the West, but the 204 could still get by with two, whereas the 154 needed all three. But you can see that broadly they are roughly the same sort of size, albeit the 154 is shorter. So, I think that the 204 gave the Soviets, a decent amount of growth room, and it'll be, it would have been interesting if the Soviet Union survived to see how many 204s were built, probably quite a large number. Otherwise, though, they don't really share a lot of commonality in terms of their looks, which isn't surprising since the 154 is from, late 60s and the 204 is from the late 80s in terms of designs. And it's interesting, certainly, to compare the 154 and the 204 to each other, and then compare the 727 and the 727 to each other. Now, just in terms of the size, you can see how much bigger it is than the 134. I've always been surprised by how small the 134 is. It really is a tiny little pocket airliner, and it is substantially smaller than these Tu-204s. But looking at Western airlines, obviously the one which everyone compares the 204 to is the 757. It is similar in size in terms of the fuselage width and in terms of the wingspan as well. Here we've got a late model 75 with winglets, which again makes it look interesting in compared to the 204. The 204's got smaller winglets, but definitely had its first. What you can see is that the 757 is slightly longer, but only marginally. Otherwise, though, they broadly have the same sort of wingspan and share roughly the same look. But of course, as I've mentioned before, the 757 sits substantially lower than the Tu-204 at the nose, and in all details they are subtly different from each other. I certainly don't consider the 204 to be a copy or a knockoff of the 757. In many ways, perhaps an aircraft that is more contemporary or more of a contemporary for the 204 is actually the A320 and the A321. Now, the A321 actually does make an interesting comparison because they're almost exactly the same length. But obviously the A321 has got a much smaller wing. It's got a much more efficient wing. So that does make an interesting comparison. It's not a real surprise that they haven't been able to sell Tu-204s into the 2000s when you've got large numbers of A321s available even to Soviet or ex-Soviet airlines. And you can see again that the Tu-204 sits substantially higher than an A321 does. So that's a really interesting comparison, I think. Cool. The last aircraft I'm going to compare the long-body Tu-204 to is the MD-90. And, the MD-90 looks a little bit old-fashioned even compared to the 204 with its T-tail and its engines at the rear. But obviously it's got these big high bypass engines as opposed to the Tu-204's Soloviev engines. It's a slightly smaller plane, obviously, but it does make an interesting comparison. One of the things that's clear is how much smaller the wingspan of an MD-90 is to the Tu-204. The Tu-204 is a big aeroplane, just like the 757. Even though it's a narrow body, it doesn't feel like a small aeroplane. It really is in that intermediate space, which has led sometimes to 757s being seen as heavies when they're coming in on landing patterns and such. So that's the quick size comparison there. of the Tu-204-100 with several of its contemporaries there, just to give you a bit of an idea about what you're going to be getting when you finally do receive your new NG Models Tu-204s. I'm really excited to see what NG are going to be making on this mold. Thanks very much for watching, guys. Obviously, as always, if you like the video, subscribe. Check me out on Instagram at YesterdayAirlines and Facebook. And check the website out, yesterdaysairlines.com, which has loads of this kind of information on it. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully we'll be seeing some of these actually released in the next few months, and that'll be super cool. Cheers, guys. Bye for now.